Imagine you are sitting on a sun-drenched terrace in the heart of Tuscany, the rolling hills of the Italian countryside stretching out before you like a Renaissance painting. In your hand is a glass of deep, ruby-red Chianti. Or maybe you are in a bustling izakaya in the neon-lit streets of Tokyo, clinking a cold glass of Sapporo with a stranger who just became a friend. Why does that first sip feel like a homecoming? Why is it that across every continent and throughout almost every culture on Earth, we find ourselves drawn to a chemical substance that is, scientifically speaking, a metabolic poison? For years, we assumed our love affair with alcohol was a relatively recent invention, a byproduct of the agricultural revolution just 10,000 years ago. But the truth is far older, far stranger, and buried deep within our DNA. There is a 10-million-year-old secret that explains why you enjoy that cocktail on your vacation, and it involves a desperate struggle for survival, a genetic fluke, and a group of ancestors who had to make a choice: evolve or starve. If that specific moment in history hadn't happened exactly the way it did, your favorite travel memories might not exist, and human civilization as we know it would look fundamentally different. To understand why we drink today, we have to travel back to a time long before cities, long before bread, and long before humans even walked upright. 10 million years ago, the world was changing. The lush tropical forests of Africa were beginning to thin out due to a shifting climate. Our primate ancestors, who had spent millions of years living comfortably in the canopy with an endless supply of fresh fruit, were suddenly facing a crisis. As the forests receded, the competition for food in the trees became fierce. This forced some adventurous apes to spend more time on the forest floor. But there was a problem. The ground was a dangerous place, and the only food available was the fruit that had already fallen from the trees. In the tropical heat, fallen fruit does not stay fresh for long. It begins to rot, and as it rots, the natural sugars are devoured by wild yeasts, which convert those sugars into ethanol. To most animals, this fermented fruit was toxic. If they ate it, the alcohol would build up in their bloodstream, making them slow, uncoordinated, and extremely vulnerable to predators. For millions of years, this was a biological dead end. But then, a miracle of evolution occurred. A single point mutation in a gene called ADH4 changed everything. This gene is responsible for producing an enzyme that breaks down alcohol in the body. Before this mutation, our ancestors' version of ADH4 was incredibly slow and inefficient. But around 10 million years ago, our common ancestor with chimpanzees and gorillas developed a version of this enzyme that was 40 times more effective at metabolizing ethanol. Suddenly, the forest floor was no longer a graveyard of rotten fruit. It was a buffet. This genetic upgrade allowed our ancestors to consume calories that other species simply couldn't touch. It was a massive evolutionary advantage that likely saved our lineage from extinction. But it did more than just provide calories. It created a sensory bridge between a chemical signal and a reward. Because ethanol is a byproduct of fermentation, its scent became a beacon, a long-distance signal telling our ancestors that food was nearby. This is why even today, the smell of a brewery or a wine cellar can feel so evocative. It triggers a 10-million-year-old survival instinct that equates the smell of alcohol with the discovery of a high-energy resource. This is known as the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis, a theory popularized by Berkeley professor Robert Dudley. It suggests that our modern affinity for alcohol is not a mistake or a moral failing, but a biological hangover from a time when chasing the scent of ethanol was the difference between life and death. Now, you might be wondering, if we evolved to eat fermented fruit, why do we enjoy being drunk? The answer lies in how our brains evolved alongside our stomachs. Ethanol triggers the release of dopamine in the brain's reward center. For a forest-dwelling ape, this was a brilliant piece of engineering. The dopamine hit ensured that once an ancestor found a patch of fermented fruit, they would stay there and eat as much as possible, loading up on calories for the lean times ahead. But there was a catch. Evolution had to balance the reward of the calories with the risk of being too intoxicated to escape a leopard. Our ancestors evolved to be able to process small amounts of alcohol very quickly, keeping them in a state of mild euphoria and high energy without the debilitating loss of motor skills. This is the exact feeling many people chase today during a happy hour or a sunset drink. It is that light, social buzz that historically facilitated bonding and lowered social barriers. But the story doesn't end in the jungle. As humans began to migrate out of Africa and across the globe, our relationship with alcohol shifted from something we found to something we created. This is where the travel niche truly begins. Every culture you visit today has its own unique way of harnessing this ancient biological hack. Think about the nomadic tribes of Central Asia who fermented horse milk into kumis,
or the early South Americans who mastered the art of chicha made from chewed corn. Alcohol became the ultimate travel companion. Why? Because water is often dangerous. Throughout most of human history, finding a clean source of water while on the move was a gamble. Alcohol, however, is a natural disinfectant. Fermenting a beverage was the most effective way to ensure it was safe to drink. When you look at the Great Pyramids of Giza, you aren't just looking at a feat of engineering, you are looking at a project fueled by beer. The workers were paid in daily rations of thick, nutritious ale because it was safer than the Nile water and packed with the calories needed for heavy labor. There is even a growing school of thought among archaeologists called the beer before bread hypothesis. It suggests that the reason humans stopped being hunter-gatherers and started farming wasn't for the sake of making bread, but for the sake of having a consistent supply of grain to brew beer. If this is true, it means that the very foundations of modern civilization, the cities we visit, the roads we travel, and the monuments we admire, were built because of our 10-million-year-old craving for ethanol. Alcohol was the social glue that allowed larger groups of humans to live together in close proximity. It lowered the tension of living in crowded settlements and facilitated the trade and diplomacy that allowed cultures to expand. This brings us back to your modern travels. When you travel to a new country and head straight for a local bar, you aren't just looking for a drink, you are participating in a ritual that is millions of years old. You are using a tool that our ancestors used to bridge the gap between stranger and friend. In a world where we often feel isolated, alcohol remains one of the few universal social lubricants. It is why a vineyard tour in France or a distillery visit in Scotland feels so culturally significant. You are tasting the history of a people distilled into a glass. Every bottle of wine or craft beer is a time capsule of the climate, the soil, and the ingenuity of the people who live there. But as we enjoy these modern luxuries, we have to respect the biological double-edged sword we carry. Our bodies are still wired for a world where alcohol was a rare, low-concentration treat found in a piece of fallen fruit. We weren't necessarily designed for the high-proof spirits and unlimited access of the 21st century. The same dopamine loop that helped an ape survive a drought can lead to a host of modern problems when the ancient reward system is overstimulated. Understanding the 10-million-year secret behind why we like alcohol doesn't just change how you look at your drink, it changes how you look at yourself. It is a reminder that we are creatures of deep time, carrying the traits and survival strategies of ancestors who lived in a world we can barely imagine. Our travel experiences are enriched when we understand the hidden forces that drive our desires. So the next time you find yourself in a far-flung corner of the map, raising a glass with people whose language you might not even speak, take a moment to appreciate that 10-million-year gene working in the background. It is the reason you can find a sense of community anywhere on Earth. It is a testament to our resilience, our curiosity, and our incredible ability to turn a survival challenge into a celebration of life. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as a trip to a new country, make sure to hit the subscribe button and join our community of curious travelers. We dive deep into the hidden histories and scientific secrets of the places and traditions that make our world so incredible. Don't forget to like this video and tell us in the comments what is the most interesting local drink you have ever discovered on your travels. Where were you and what did it taste like? We love hearing your stories. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering the secrets that connect us all. Cheers to the journey.